Hello and welcome to the Amateur Austenite. My name is Frances Duncan. I'm an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of New Zealand. My co-host is my friend Sian.
Good afternoon.
And today we are discussing Chapter 19 of Persuasion by Jane Austen. In Chapter 19, Captain Wentworth turns up in Bath. He and Anne run into each other while she's hiding from the rain, and then she has to walk home with Mr. Elliot, and she wants him to shut up and he won't. And then she doesn't see Captain Wentworth, but she knows he's going to be at the concert, so she cancels a visit with Mrs. Smith to go and see him, and Mrs. Smith says some unusual things. We start off the chapter talking about the walk that Anne had with Admiral Croft, and I'm not sure that Jane Austen often does chapters that bleed into each other. Usually they're quite separate things, but this one starts with, while Admiral Croft was taking his walk with Anne, and expressing his wish of getting Captain Wentworth to Bath, Captain Wentworth was already on his way thither, directly reflecting back to the scene we've just read. Mr. Elliot, Mrs. Clay, Miss Elliot, i.e. Elizabeth, and Anne are all shopping in town and get caught in the rain. They see Lady Dalrymple's carriage and they're going to get a ride in it, but there isn't room for everybody. So Elizabeth can go, and then there's some argument over whether it's going to be Anne or Mrs. Clay. And we know how it's going to end up, because Elizabeth doesn't care about Anne, and she will always have the deciding vote. Mrs. Clay was quite as anxious to be left to walk with Mr. Elliot as Anne could be. And I wonder if this is the starting of the scheming. And you made that noise when we were reading that bit.
I did, didn't I? I thought, Now, I hadn't noticed that before. But the way they were talking, my boots are thicker than your boots. And not that I think that Anne was particularly keen to walk with Mr. Elliot.
No, I don't think so.
I just don't think she wanted the company of her sister and Lady Dalrymple, which I think is a fair comment, actually.
So they have a very polite argument, which shows they both have very good manners. Again, proving Mrs. Clay has good manners.
Mrs. Clay, in many respects, forget about what happens eventually, comes out as being far more reasonable than Elizabeth. Pragmatic, honest in her humility. She knows she's there on grace and favour.
She knows it's not her place to take the place in the carriage.
Yes.
Anne looks out the window and sees Captain Wentworth. She sort of phases out. She was lost. And when she had scolded back her senses, she discovers they're in exactly the same position. Like, she has no idea how much time has passed. And she's like, how has nothing changed?
Yes.
And then she's so adorably awkward and so real. She wanted to see if it rained. Why should she suspect herself of another motive? She would go. She would see if it rained. She wants to go and see if he's still in the street, if she can see him. As she reaches the door, he walks in. He goes quite red, which is an interesting reaction when he finds her. So you're like, did he know she was in there somehow?
Or was he in Bath because he knew she was there and was taken aback to see her so suddenly before he had a chance to sort of get his breath, as it were?
So she has time to prepare herself.
Yes.
And he definitely doesn't. But her feelings, it was agitation, pain, pleasure, a something between delight and misery, which is actually a beautiful description of love.
It is. Particularly the unknown, when you don't know if it's reciprocated at all.
So they have a bit of a conversation, and Anne is fully sensible of his being less at ease than formerly. There was a consciousness of some sort or other. He's shy. And Captain Wentworth is never shy.
Yes, he's always a very assured man, or always perceived as being very assured, but not in this instance.
It's a very quick conversation, because then Mr. Elliot turns up to escort her home. They leave together, and a really interesting thing happens. We've been following Anne and her narrative, but as she walks out of the shop, we stay in the shop and we hear Captain Wentworth's friends talking about Anne and speculating about her and Mr. Elliot.
The shoe's on the other foot.
It puts Captain Wentworth in a very awkward position.
And it's also quite different because in the beginning, the Musgroves are talking with Captain Wentworth about Anne, and he says he wouldn't have recognised her.
And here these people are praising her. I think her prettier than her sister.
Probably is hardly difficult, I should think. As they say, Elizabeth has the more dramatic looks, but I suspect people realise that she doesn't have an ounce of kindness in her.
I hope that they can see that.
Well, they would see that in her behaviour, if it mattered to them, if it were the kind of people with whom it mattered. She doesn't seem to have many friends when it boils down to it. You never hear of Elizabeth having friends around. At least Caroline Bingley in Pride and Prejudice, you know she has a wide circle of acquaintances and she goes to a lot of places. Elizabeth doesn't seem to do anything without her father, and it's all status things, like Lady Dalrymple type of thing. So you're the hangers-on rather than going... I don't recollect any sort of where they just got the young women together and going off shopping or anything like that.
She has Mrs. Clay, but she's more of a companion.
She's
than
a
friend.
companion, not a friend. And certainly not at the same level, social equal.
Are we feeling some sympathy for Elizabeth?
I didn't say I'd go quite that far. Probably. Possibly. I mean, she's had such a bad example. It's one of those things, you can be abused two ways. One, by actual obvious abuse, but also by being so spoiled. Being spoiled is literally that. You become a spoiled character, a spoiled person. So you don't achieve your potential. And what could she have been had her mother brought her up rather than her father?
So Anne is walking home with Mr. Elliot and she wants him to stop talking because she can't she can't focus on what he's talking about. She's thinking about Captain Wentworth. She could not understand his present feelings, whether he were really suffering much from disappointment or not. Until that point was settled, she could not be quite herself. Is it concern for him, or is it a little bit of hope creeping in?
She would say it was concern, and she wouldn't wish to admit to hope because she feels that she doesn't have hope.
So there's a lot of little scenes that follow on. Anne and Lady Russell bowling through the streets of Bath in Lady Russell's carriage. And she sees...
She's such a hypocrite. Such a hypocrite.
She sees Captain Wentworth on the pavement, and Lady Russell pretends not to see him. And Anne sighed and blushed and smiled in pity and disdain, either at her friend or herself. It's quite an amusing scene, though.
She's come to recognise Lady Russell for what she is, in the sense of her bias and lack of understanding of Anne, really.
I think that's probably the hardest thing, that Lady Russell thinks she knows Anne, but she doesn't really.
No, and I think she sees too much of her friend in her.
So then a couple of days pass and Anne doesn't see Captain Wentworth. She's trapped in the elegant stupidity of private parties.
That's a wonderful phrase.
It is. I'm not sure whether
bored to tears. She wouldn't have had any decent conversation.
And I think potentially this reflects Austen's own views. I mean, tell us how you really feel. But she knows that Captain Wentworth really likes music. So he's likely to be at this concert where Lady Dalrymple's protégé will be singing. They don't normally go to concerts or the theatre because it wasn't fashionable enough. So Anne had half promised to spend the evening with Mrs. Smith, but she has a very hurried visit with her to say, I'm sorry, I can't come. I'm going to this concert with my family. So Anne tells her all the names of the party. And Mrs. Smith says, I heartily wish your concert may answer. I think she's expecting a proposal from Mr. Elliot, and that's what she's referring to.
And she does it in such a way, it's very tentative. It's not knowingly, and some people say, oh, we know what's going on. It's none of that sort of teasingly, knowingly. It's I would not be surprised, but certainly no demonstrative enthusiasm, more of expectation.
And she continues on to say, I begin to have a foreboding that I may not have many more visits from you. Like, she thinks Mr. Elliot's going to keep Anne away.
And that's the use of the term foreboding is really quite interesting. That's why I'm saying it's not in a humorous way.
No.
You could say I have a bit of a foreboding with a smile on her face, as it were, with enthusiasm. There's no sense of that at all. So, yes, there's something more coming up in the plot. We don't know yet, but there is something else that Mrs. Smith knows about that the rest of us don't.
Although we do, because we've read the book.
Well, yes, that's true. We're having to pretend we don't know, you realise.
But it's interesting to see the little breadcrumbs of things as we go along.
And this is one of the beauties about reading it again, is that you pick up on these things. You really don't necessarily, you certainly don't consciously aware of them.
They were always there.
Time marches on, doesn't it? There's going to be a few cliffhangers coming up, I think.
And that is our summary of Chapter 19 of Persuasion by Jane Austen. My name is Frances Duncan. You can find me at francesduncanwrites.com and on Twitter at Frances_Duncan. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.